Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Omar Hargrove. And today I'm joined with a good friend of mine, Abe McIntyre. And Abe is going to be with us today, and he's going to share a little bit about his journey into leadership and a lot more about his story and even his road from being from recovery to leadership and helping others. And Abe, let's go ahead and get started. Can we go ahead and kind of share a little bit about yourself? I know I feel like we've developed a great friendship over the years. I met Abe at a recovery center that I go to on a weekly basis. And that friendship is kind of, I guess like at once acquaintances turned into, mutual friendship. And I really enjoyed talking with Abe. Abe, share a little bit about yourself and your story as we get started.
Very awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Homer. I really do appreciate it. Let me see. Where can I begin? Well, I am in recovery. I have almost 5 years clean time, and I've been through. We've all been through a lot, but it's typical for people to say I've been through a lot, and the things that I have gone through from, let me see, abuse, mentally, physically, and on the mental side, being angry, misunderstood, um, misjudged, but also in the same token, through all of my frustration and anger, resentment, and everything like that, I also have done those similar things. So, in my journey, me being 41 years of age, it's taken me over 20 years just to have a solid 4 years and counting of recovery. And so a lot of that for me has caused up a lot of emotional insecurities and being, in a vulnerable state, to overcome those has been challenging, but more importantly, rewarding.
Yeah.
If I don't know how far you want me to get off into details, I'm very, very open.
Yeah.
Everything. I'm just being mindful of where I am.
No, that's great. And I really appreciate your transparency. I think that it's one of the most valuable qualities in people is their ability and willingness to be transparent. Let's kind of let's go into the moment that you decided to help others that are also in recovery. I mean, being 4 years clean yourself, what was the moment like where you decided that you wanted to start helping others in whatever way, shape, or form that looks like? Because I feel like for most of us, me being recovery myself, I feel like a majority of time we feel like, man, I'm just barely trying to make it. And it's hard to sometimes bridge that gap to where you could even see any potential within yourself to make a difference for someone else. So let's focus on that point for a second. Tell us what that was like for you when you came about making that decision to help others for yourself.
Well, in the beginning, for real, it looks totally different from the beginning than what it does right now. In the beginning, I wanted to save the world. I really wanted to save the world, right? I wanted just to go out and just tell everybody that, hey, if you do it this way, or just listen to what someone has to tell you. The advice that I have can save your life. And in the beginning, that's what it was like. I found out pretty quickly it's not, yeah, that's not gonna go fly, But I think it took me maybe, I'm gonna say a year after of a good solid um, sobriety. The passion was still there, right? But the method changed, and the method um, it looks different, right? It looked different for me at times. Some days I was just like, I'm not gonna waste my breath talking to individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And some days it just clicked, right? Because the passion was still there. And thinking about it, I want to say the discipline to be mindful of my fellow people that's trying to get something that I have, being mindful that there aren't where I am, and the willingness is there, but the lack of discipline in those early stages makes things challenging for people. So me having the awareness of that, um, it allowed me to be more understanding, compassionate
Hmm.
to what someone is going through. And that's where it kind of catapulted from there, as far as me being patient with someone. And then everything else just kind of everything else was just easy after that, because
Hmm.
20 years of experiences, um, and not gonna lie, fun fact, me being in prison, being around the minimum of 40 different personas a day, you learn real quick who to stay around, who to stay away from. Oh, this person's having a tough time today, stay out of his way.
Yeah.
And then I learned, I started to, once I got out of, jail and prison and those things, and started learning cognitive skills and traits and diagnosis. And I'm not really diagnosing people, but to identify, like at that point in my life, to identify, different mindsets that people are in, or psychosis, I should say.
Yeah.
It really helped me understand even more to be compassionate with people and how to treat them. So,
That's so powerful, Abe, because it makes me think about several things. Like how you started off saying you had this passion at the beginning, but in a sense, like no one cared. It's like you want to share what you know, but no one cares to know what you want to share. And it makes me think about like classic saying, no one cares about how much you know until they know how much you care. And the way that you're talking about like learning compassion and understanding, I think that that is something that is like key for young leaders to be able to learn and understand, because so many people start out like guns blazing, like you said, ready to change the world, and it almost like to be hitting this wall of reality that people do not trust you. Like
it'll
people,
drain. It'll definitely drain you if you allow it.
yeah. Exactly. And I think that that simple, like the way that you're describing even just simple engagement with people, I think is universal. And it's not just specific to recovery, it's not just specific to like in prison, but these are universal principles with people and human nature that that are applicable. And I think that even just how you're describing like what you learned even from social interaction in jail, and about how it's helped you in social interaction, it's like you're in this hyper conduit place where you're forced to be around all these other people with all kinds of different backgrounds, and learning how to adapt and adjust to them. And the way that you're describing, like being able to, in a sense, like read people's cues, like knowing when they're pissed off or not, or knowing when they're having a good day, a bad day, knowing when someone's scared, knowing when someone's overconfident, that those are all these social cues that are now helpful for you in like real life world, and like a normal day-to-day stuff, and even within your career path and leadership. And I think that uh, navigating how to read people in a healthy way, that's not like stereotyping, of course, but like reading cues and these these notions that people give off, can be so edifying and helpful within leadership when people are trying to, in a sense, like figure those different things out. I think that's great. That's powerful,
Yeah.
man.
Stereotyping. I went through a phase with that as well. And that was awful of me to, stereotype people. But I followed the stereotypes through, right? Because and I mean it with all due respect, because the passion was there, right? So I'm thinking I have a thought that this individual is a certain way, and then when I start to engage with this individual, I find out that I was wrong,
Right.
completely wrong, right? And sometimes still to this day, right? I feel like I have to get it out, right? In my mind, I've wronged this person. I need to tell this individual I'm so wrong for
Mm.
stereotype in my mind, right? And when they go and when I go and go to them, it's just like, what? It's kind of like, whatever, man. Like, it's no big deal. And so I had to go through that process to understand that, stereotyping is not all, I don't know. I don't know anything. But I do have to say while I'm on this podcast, your podcast, is that my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, if it wasn't for him, I would not have the strength and the courage to go out and seek um, other beliefs, to be compassionate and talkative to other religions as well, because his teachings has put me in this place to where I don't judge. I don't overthink. I don't overreact. I listen. I obey, and I really owe that to Jesus' teachings.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff, man. And I think too, when you break down, like even the idea that other people have different religious faiths, it's like, of course they do. And I think that we create such a stigma in our head, mainly because of our culture and like history, that's like made it really weird. Like there's a lot of stigma to like historical incidences. But when we break out to like when I ask someone about their faith, like many, I don't think I've ever offended someone, except one time I offended a Jehovah Witness, but they were mainly offended because I asked them why they believe what they believe, and they were really mad that they didn't have an answer for me. But I've even with that, I wasn't trying to make them mad. It was, I've
Right.
gotten better at even just like not letting that happen again, and helping people to, in a sense, like realize that themselves rather than it being so blatant. But when at the end of the day, it's like just like with leadership, our faith is simply like sharing your life with someone else. And oftentimes I just ask people like, oh, so what made you like Muslims, anyone. Or I've had conversations just saying like, oh, so what made you kind of go down that path? Were you raised that way, or is it something you're always used to? And then they share their bit, and then they'll ask, kind of like naturally ask me about mine, or I'll just share like, oh yeah, for me, I believe in Jesus because of this. And it's like a super simple, non-threatening conversation. And by the end of it, most times they're like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, it's way more organic. And I think it's the way that you're describing, like talking about compassion and understanding, and it not being about I'm right, you're wrong. I think helps people be a lot more open to what you have to say when you go about it conversationally like that. I love how you're sharing that.
The compassion, and openness and wisdom behind Christianity. Um, when I am that way, right? Majority of the time. Few incidents you might not see the Christianity in me, but for majority of the time, I heard in the past where people can say, I see the Christian in you, and it mainly comes from the compassion. The compassion,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, is where people, tell me about my Christianity faith. They can see it.
Yeah, that's great, man. Ever since I met you too, you're very what I notice is that you're very articulate in how you talk. And there's I feel like you can just barely tell. I can barely tell when you're about to say something and you hold back and you're like, and you just say it, like you almost like reorganize and say it like more
Yeah,
politely.
I was
It
just finished it, man, because I feel like because I'm very insecure, like I said, um I did not complete high school. I dropped out at an early age, and I went and took a test, and I passed the test with flying colors. But I was in special ed, man, from 7th grade all the way up to 10th grade. I was in special ed, so I've always had these insecure feelings about myself. But now that I'm, clean and sober, and you know, giving myself positive affirmations, I'm getting better, right? But in
Right.
my mind, I'm still stuck there, and I have to be careful and mindful of that, with the whole
Yeah.
general. It's unreal, when people tell me how I articulate, but I'm just like, I feel like I'm struggling so hard in my head just to get the words out.
Wow,
Yeah.
that I think that says a lot about the public school system, but I'll digress. Yeah, because I've not once had any notion of like a mental handicap or anything like that with talking with you. And I think that the way that you're describing like an impression on you from a young age of extreme held back, like even like the thought of having a disability, and now as a grown man, a grown adult dealing with life, and through your life experiences, now at 41 you're striving to make a difference for other people's lives, and you're doing it in a way that's articulate. You make yourself presentable. You're using what you've experienced in life and using it to whatever effort you can to help others. And I guess, with that thought, like it seems to me like the way that you describe it is like that insecurity. Would you say that that was your greatest obstacle when you kind of transitioned from going into sobriety and then positioning yourself as a leader for others?
Understanding my insecurities, where they come from, um, what the things that I've, what's the words I'm looking for? The things that I've blocked off in my mind. Because the brain will, well, for me, my brain would anything that's harmful to me, I'll shut down and try to
Mm-hmm.
forget. So, being mindful of my insecurities was the hardest obstacle, and it still is, because I'm still changing every day. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. You know, I think one of the hardest things I had to realize after um, coming to, no longer participating in drugs and alcohol was, there's things about myself I just don't understand, like jealousy. Like,
Mm.
I'm a jealous individual, and I don't have to be in a relationship with someone to be jealous. And I'm just like, I'm
Yeah.
not jealous. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like, this doesn't, like it. So I'm going through these things, and being emotional, dealing with death, dealing with people being, quote unquote, doing things better than me,
Mm.
expectations, putting expectations on people when I didn't even realize I put expectations onto someone. It's just a whole bunch of things. So, like, I'm a human being, right? I keep telling myself that daily. I'm a human being. It is
Yeah.
okay. Just the feeling. This too shall pass.
Mm.
And but with my insecurities, the biggest thing that I had to remember with dealing with my insecurities is not the beginning of the journey or the end, is how I handle myself in between those.
Mm.
I'm able to joke about, being jealous, or, things like that, because right now it's like 50% of I make jokes, and telling a joke about it is 50% of the truth, right? I'm jealous, ha 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 ha. But deep down inside, I don't really feel that way. But I'm just projecting out there in the world, right? Because I
Yeah.
don't want to bring someone else down. And so how I dealt with those things was just to, you know, think it over, talk it out with someone that I trust, and that's going to give me good positive feedback. But yeah, the insecurity is just, I don't know if it's ever going to go away, Homer.
Yeah, probably not. I think
Right.
every single leader deals with insecurities. And those who don't, I think, are way too overconfident. Like they
Good
those are
point.
like people that seem kind of crazy. And the way that you're describing to like these insecurities that you have, I feel like probably every person listening would be able to relate to the own insecurities that they have, and how it affects their leadership internally. Just like how you said, like even feeling jealous of someone else's success, and feeling like insecure when another leader seems to be quote unquote better than you, and it messes with you. It messes with your head, and it's crazy how far those insecurities can take your thought process if you let them, to the point where so many leaders start thinking in their mind, because of their insecurities, well, they have this person, they don't even need me anymore. I might as well just quit, I might as well just give up. And it's like you get to like these crazy conclusions when you don't have someone to filter those through, like you're saying, having like some type of person, whether it's a mentor, accountability partner, or even a friend, like to be able to filter some of these emotions and thoughts, I think is one of the healthiest things that leaders can do, because it helps you get it off your chest, but it also helps remind you. It's like having someone else kind of reaffirm you. And when you're saying like I'm so dumb and ugly, and then the person says, hey, whoa, brother, you're not dumb and ugly, like you're a great person. And it helps get it off your chest, and it also helps reaffirm the truth, getting out the lie and reaffirming the truth. And I love how you describe that so transparently. We all deal with that too. Today's episode is brought to you by Gravetop Designs online store. Visit gravetopdesigns.com/shop to find custom-made Christian clothing that's edgy and actually looks good. I crafted all of the designs myself, so I'd love to hear your feedback and tell me what you think. Share your next purchase on Instagram and tag Gravetop Designs for a chance to get 10% off your next order. Shop today, help support this channel. Again, that's gravetopdesigns.com/shop. Now we talked about the greatest obstacle being
Okay.
within insecurity, those internal thoughts. What would you say since your path of sobriety and going into more of a leader's position and helping others, what would you say is something that you're most proud of now?
My experiences, I'm most
Mm.
proud of that. Um, my experience has took me to some dark places in my life. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy to be in those state of minds and places. And I am, and I made it out. I made it out of those. The way I used to think, and the things that I used to do,
Yeah.
and the way I used to express myself. Oh, I'm so glad I'm over that. But that would have to be the most thing I'm proud of, because it is, once I came out of that, and I'm in a place to speak my truth, give my opinion about me, right? No one else, because the journey that I went down, nobody went there with me. It was just me. I did the
Yeah.
time. I've done things to my body that might catch up with me in about another 10 years,
Yeah.
you know, these are my experiences, and my experiences allows me to speak my truth thoroughly and transparently without any flaws,
Yeah.
because speaking of the things that I've been through, and we all been through some things that we can speak on. There's a lot of people that I know that, you know because of what I've been through, gave them the courage to open up and talk to their counselors and talk to spiritual leaders, if you will, about the things that they went through. But, you know, they told me like one on one, like, bro, if you never would have said anything about that, I would have taken that to my grave.
Mm.
And so that is the most thing that I honor most about, you know, myself, you know, that my higher power, you know, well, I have to say myself, I don't give myself enough credit, you know, because my higher power never left me, right? I ran away from my higher power, which is Jesus, by the way, if people are just tuning
Yeah.
in. But yeah, I don't give myself enough credit. You know, I don't like using the word proud, and that's just for the things that I've done to myself. But proud is a beautiful word. I think I abused my privileges with that word. But that's the most thing that I find joyness in is
Yeah.
overcoming those battles. Like if you could just see me, sometimes in my head, I'm just like, no.
Yeah, you know, that makes me I remember hearing one time somebody say that I something, man, how does it go? They said it's so pretty too. It's something along the lines of that I would never change the ministry that God has given me, but I would have never chose it either. And and I feel like it relates a lot to our experiences and the things that we go through. It's like, just like you said, you wouldn't wish it upon anyone else. Like those, like some of our experiences are so painful, and in a sense, like we at the time wish that they never happen, but when we make it out through, or like survive through it on the other side, it makes you who you are, all the good, bad, and the ugly. And you would not be the person that you are today without those painful experiences, but amongst beautiful ones too, but painful moments, those struggles. And I think that a lot of what we go through prepares us for who we're supposed to minister to now. And it's like, even for me, like I think I did a lot of terrible things that I'm not proud of, but now that I'm able to, God has like redeemed even the terrible things that I've done to be able to minister to people who are going through those things that I once did. And I'm able to minister to them in a way that nobody else can, because of the very experiences I'm ashamed of. And for that, I'm proud. It's like, it's a beautiful thing to recognize that redemption power that God is able to do in your life, to be able to reach specific people, that it's almost like God has made this way for you to, in order to use what was bad for good. That's beautiful, man. And on this, you know, on this note of talking about what we're proud of and looking back and recognizing growth, what kind of what kind of questions do you wish that you would have asked earlier on? Like, say it's you just made your decision for sobriety and you're just now starting out this path. What's one question that you wish you would have asked earlier, now that you're 4 years down the road, and when it comes to the kind of like entering into this path of making a difference for others?
Say that last part one more time.
So what's one question that you wish that you would have asked earlier, say like in year one, when you started this path of sobriety and walking into making a difference for others, like how you were talking about how you tried to, you know, change the world within that first year? What's one question that you wish you would have asked earlier from someone else that would have helped you along?
That's a really good question. What is one question I would have asked? Is, don't stress over it. You know, don't beat myself up.
Mm.
Um, Like I probably would have looked at myself and just be like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Mm,
Um, and try my best not to feel sad when I'm telling myself this, right? Because I know me. And just I would really remind myself, man, just don't beat yourself up over it. You're a human being. Like
mm,
people make mistakes. Set better boundaries. Just don't beat yourself up.
yeah, man, that's beautiful. And I think that what you're describing is what a lot of young leaders experience and feel.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's like the moment that you start trying to take initiative and try to make change, try to make a difference, it's usually when you start making a lot of mistakes. And it's like we know that you're not, like, no one's perfect, but in a sense, like we imagine that to only apply with like making bad mistakes, but we don't always consider it to be true when you're making good mistakes, when you're trying to do, in a sense, like the right thing, but you're making mistakes that aren't working. And
right.
I think,
Absolutely. Right. Like
yeah,
I'm not saying y'all to go out and be arrogant. Right. I'm not saying this. Just don't be arrogant about um whenever you make a mistake, and if you have to question yourself, right? Was that bad? Oh well, don't worry about it. Just keep going. No, I mean, like, don't beat yourself up about it.
yeah,
Process it. Figure some things out. Talk to a couple of people. Because it's a quote. I just got this from Equalizer 4. I went theaters.
was it good?
Equalizer 4. Oh, it's great. It was great. It was really good. And this old Italian man asked Denzel Washington. It's not really a spoiler alert. Don't have to worry about it,
Okay, I was about to say, like, do we need to block
right?
this out or
but the Italian man asked him, "Are you a good man?" And Denzel said, "I don't know." And then, like, later on in the film, he said, Denzel asked him, how did you know if I'm a good man? And I always said, well, why did you do what you did for me? Because he said, good men don't know they're good.
Hmm,
And so, and that's just kind of sums up, but it helps sum up what I mean by, don't beat yourself up,
yeah,
uh, but don't be arrogant either. It's a huge difference. And
yeah,
to be arrogant, I mean, for me, in my opinion, arrogance is, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, and not really processing what is taking place, whether if I'm in the right or if I am in the wrong. Take and I guess what I'm trying to say is that arrogant people don't really process what just took place. Um, and so, and so therefore, when I say, don't beat yourself up about it, process it, and then, move on from it with wisdom.
yeah.
you know, Definitely with wisdom. I think I took too much time on that one. My bad.
No, no, that was beautiful. We have a saying at our church: always do your best and forget the rest. And I feel like that's like I actually stole that. Anyone that's listening, that you've heard, it's been our motto in the church, and you've been like, it's like been your, so many people are like, oh man, that's changed my life. I gotta be honest with y'all, I stole it from was it Tony Horton from P90X, and those old school videos where he's doing all the workouts, and he'd always say, like, just do your best and forget the rest. And that just stuck with me. I felt like it was the most encouraging thing, like, for a workout, yeah, but I was like, man, that's like for life. Like, just do your best and forget the rest. And I think in leadership, you got to do that. You just have to have this mindset, like, you're always trying to work on yourself. But if you try to pick yourself apart, you're gonna like be too brutal to yourself. And like, you could be realistic, but also like be a little patient with, give yourself the same kind of grace that you would extend to someone else. And I remember when I used to meet with early on in my leadership, I would meet with this mentor on like a weekly basis, and his like almost there's like a period where I was already feeling like felt like I was going through something myself, but there's this period where for like 4 weeks in a row, every single time I met with him, he was telling me something I did wrong and that I needed to do better. Like it's just, and I think that was his way of like mentoring, was like, let me just find whatever you're doing wrong and help you get it better. And man, I'm like OCD, right? And I'm perfectionist. And when someone tells me you did this wrong, you need to do it better, I would like overanalyze. I'd be up in my head. And I'm talking about,
You would
yeah,
go in,
I would be in it. And I'm talking about like OCD to the point where there's a period where I would open and close doors 4 times. Like it was, and so you tell me, oh, this was wrong, you shouldn't have done, why'd you do it like that, you need to do it like this, I would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ruined everyone's life. Like I literally felt like I was ruining people's souls. And the 4th week, I remember it was like the 4th week, he told me something else I did, like this new thing, and I like felt so angry and sad at the same time. And I literally couldn't help myself, and I started crying. And he's like, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong? And I was just I was like trying so hard not to cry, but it's like I felt so overly emotional, because even though he's just saying like, hey, this is something you could do better, he did it with a sharper tone, but it was like eating me up inside, and I took it way more personal than I should have. And I kept like, every time it was something I could do better, it meant that I was less and less of a leader. And by that point, I was like, then I guess I should just quit ministry. I should just quit leadership because I'm doing everything wrong. It was getting extreme. And it's like, that's how far you can go if you don't give yourself that kind of grace. If like you're saying, if you're just beating yourself up too much, you will disqualify yourself from doing something significant and great. And you just need to, sometimes I think we just need to chill out and remind ourselves like, hey, I'm either just getting started, or like, this is the first time I've ever done this before, and I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to do it. And so that, I think that's amazing, great advice for someone that is in that year one moment themselves. That was great, Abe.
Yeah, because that manifestation process, right? Of once the thought takes place, the whole snowball effect. Once the snowball is going downhill, that's for me, that's my manifestation. And I don't know what happens. I'm good, but I'm not that good, right? To understand the whole manifestation part of it. But yeah, the sooner I can nip that in the bud, the better.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And some of us are more overthinkers than others, but I like how you said it too, like in that quote with the Equalizer for Out Now, that like good people don't know that they're good. And I think that's the same with leadership, that often, like I remember hearing this on a podcast by Craig Rochelle, and he was talking about leadership, and he would ask his leaders to grade themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. And often the ones that graded themselves as like a 1, 2, or 3 were usually the high performers, like they were the high potential leaders. But the leaders that were scoring themselves 7, 8, 9 were in his words, like, yeah, they were 7, 8, 9 out of 100. Like they were the lowest performing leaders, but they thought so highly of themselves. And yet the best performing leaders thought so low of themselves. And it's so funny how, ironic it is, but I think it's like you're saying is, when just if you're being critical of yourself, it might be the fact because you're having self-awareness, which is a healthy thing when done correctly. Now let me ask you one last question. I know that we've been on for a minute now. Let me ask you one last question, and that is, what is the greatest change that you've made as a leader? What's the greatest change that you feel like you have made as a leader? Dramatic pause. This
Yeah,
is a big question.
I have to really think about it because this is I've made quite a few changes. Um I would say the greatest change I have made is and it's gonna sound corny, but I don't really care. The greatest change I've made is responsibilities.
Hmm.
Taking taking care of my responsibilities. That is by far the greatest change, and I still got a long way to go. But after everything that I just thought about, as of right now, that's the greatest change I've made is responsibilities. Yeah, a long time ago, I wouldn't be able to do everything that I'm doing, and because nothing about me was normal back then, so I couldn't do normal, quote unquote, normal things, right? Quote unquote, and that is the greatest change about me is that I'm able to take care of my responsibilities today. Um,
Hmm.
dis- the discipline, for all you young folks out there, the sooner you discipline yourself, the better. Because I can tell you with lived experience, if you do not discipline yourself, somebody will do it for you.
Hmm. That's that's real. You know, I'm reminded of a quote from a book by Dr. Ed Cole. I think it was a book called Maximize Manhood, and he says that maturity is the willingness to accept responsibility, and that maximize maturity is a willingness to accept others' responsibilities, and it's like your willingness to be responsible for other people as well as beyond yourself. And I think that that's in essence what leadership is accepting responsibilities beyond yourself, and going extending yourself into other people's lives, and positioning yourself to be responsible for things that technically has is nothing to do with you, but you position yourself in this role to where you are helping others, and it's a
It,
weight.
it shows. It shows, and when people see that, they gravitate towards it. Good and bad, by the way, but
Yeah.
people do gravitate towards it.
Yeah, it's really interesting how our human nature works, and it's like this process to where, like, for some of us, this aspiration for leadership comes out, and for I used to think that everybody had aspirations for leadership, and it took me a couple of years to realize, like, nah, dog, like, not everyone wants that. and
Yeah.
and when you try to force somebody that doesn't have that into a place of leadership, it's not fair to them. Like, it's not something that they necessarily ask for, nor have the aspirations to. But I think the opposite is true too, that when you have that aspiration for leadership and you never tap into it, you're just looking at a very unfulfilled life. You're going to constantly feel, rather than a burden of responsibility, you're going to feel this burden of unfulfillment and, like, risks untaken. And I think that when you allow yourself to grow whatever capacity of leadership that is for you, and helping others, making a difference, that you begin tapping into this potential inside of yourself to do more than what you thought you were able to do. And not only is it like helpful for others, but I feel like it's so helpful for oneself. Like,
Right.
there's been honest times, and I don't know how this will be perceived by anyone listening, but there's been honest times where I've reflected and thought, man, I wonder if I would still be like a down home Christian like I am right now if I wasn't a minister. Like, would I have prayed as much? Would I have read scripture as much? Would I have, pressed in spiritually as much if I didn't have the mental connotation that I was preparing myself spiritually for others? You dig what I'm saying? And
I
it's
do.
like it
Absolutely. I got there was nothing for me to say on that one because I'm living proof, you know,
yeah.
you know,
it,
because
it, Go ahead.
I didn't press into it, and I know the word. I do. I really do know the word. But if I would have stayed with it, it would have propelled me in that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so for someone to have, that mental, I like to call it that jet set focus to do something, it's going to take you places you can only imagine that, you can't even imagine where you go, where it's going to take you in life.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I love that. And for everyone else that's listening apart, I'm so grateful for you guys being with us today on this episode. Abe, I really loved our conversation and what we got to talk about today. If anyone wanted to connect with you online, how could they do that? Could they find you on Facebook, Instagram?
Oh, yes. Straight STR, the number 8, EDIT at Instagram. I'm kind of old school, y'all. I went. I wasn't thinking about that, but no, just type in Abe McIntyre, man. I'm open. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and that's pretty much it. I don't have that much social media, but yeah, if you got any questions, whatever the case may be, or you just need somebody to talk to on on any subject, really, don't really matter what the subject is. If you just need somebody to listen to, I'm willing. Is that good for me to say on here? I don't know. I'm so green,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, that's good,
So
man.
green.
No, that was great. I think especially, whether it's someone to talk to, or especially anyone that wants to look more into path of sobriety or leadership, helping others, like what we talked about today, you'd be a great person to talk to. And I only use Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I don't use Twitter. Someone asked me, how come you're not on Twitter? It says, well, because I'm not a politician and I don't want to just yell about things. I don't have anything that I want to argue about, so I'm not on there.
Barely Graham, 2 years ago. I'm so green, man.
That's good, man. Well, I'm so grateful for you being a part of today's episode. To all of you guys, listening, I'm so grateful for y'all being a part of our podcast today. Could y'all do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It really helped me out and help others be able to see this channel in their feed. Until next time, have a great life.